The great throne room of the alien palace was silent. Once it had been a place of power, full of voices, music, and light. Now it was broken, its tall walls cracked, and its shining banners torn down. The air smelled of smoke and blood. The ground was covered with ashes. In the middle of this ruin sat the alien queen, her body leaning weakly on the throne that once showed her glory. Her silver armor was cut open and blood ran slowly down her side. Her crown was broken, her long dark hair stuck to her face, wet with sweat and dust. Her golden eyes burned with anger and pain, but her voice was still sharp. She had been betrayed, by her own council, by those who had sworn loyalty to her name. They had sent their soldiers into her chambers, blades ready to spill her blood. They wanted her throne, her empire, her life. The queen fought back with her own hands, her claws tearing through armor, her voice calling lightning down from the ceiling, but they were too many, and her body too weak from poison hidden in her drink earlier that night. Now she sat wounded and bleeding, her enemies gone to report her death. Her empire would fall within hours. A sound echoed in the chamber. The queen's golden eyes lifted. From the shadows of the broken doorway stepped a human soldier. His armor was scratched and burned, his face covered in dirt, but his eyes shone with strange courage. He was alone, moving slowly, one hand holding his side where blood also dripped. The queen's voice cut the silence like a knife. "You dare enter my chamber, human," she snarled, her fangs flashing in the dim light. "You are not worthy to touch me." The human stopped at the bottom of the throne steps. He bowed his head slightly, not as a servant, but as one who carried respect and memory. "I did not come to touch you, my queen," he said in a voice low and tired. "I came because I remember when you once saved me." Her claws gripped the arm of the throne tightly. The words made her chest burn with anger, but also with something she refused to name. Memories tried to rise, but she pushed them away. "You speak lies," she growled. "You humans are thieves, betrayers, weak things crawling through stars." The soldier raised his head, his eyes dark but calm. "If I am weak, then why do I stand here when all your counsel has turned against you?" he asked. "Why do I risk my blood when your own kind leave you to die?" The queen's breath came heavy, her body shivering with pain. Still she lifted her chin, her pride was greater than her wounds. She spat blood at her feet and hissed, "You think I need you, human? You think I will beg for help? I would rather bleed into the stone than let your hands touch me." The soldier took another step closer, his boots echoing in the ruined hall. He pulled from his belt a small vial glowing faint blue. The light inside it shimmered like living fire. He held it up so she could see. "This can close your wound," he said. "This can give you strength to rise again, but it will only work if you trust me." Her eyes narrowed, her body tense like a beast ready to strike. Trust him, a human, the very race her empire once called enemies, the very race her council used as slaves. Her claws dug deeper into the throne, the stone cracking under her strength. "What is this?" "Trick," she whispered, her voice trembling with both rage and fear. "Poison, is it not? Your people would laugh if they saw me drink from your hand. They would call me fallen. They would call me broken." The soldier lowered the vial, but did not hide it. He looked up at her with steady eyes. "Your enemies are already coming. They think you are dead," he said. "If you fall here, if you let pride kill you, your empire ends tonight." The words struck her heart like a blade. She knew he was right, but her pride screamed against it. Her breath grew sharper, her golden eyes blazing. Her body trembled with the weight of choice. The soldier stepped back, placing the vial on the first step of the throne. He did not push her, he did not beg. He only said, "Decide, my queen, your throne or your pride." The chamber grew quiet. Again. The queen stared at the glowing vial, her claws twitching, her blood dripping into the cracks of the stone. She felt the pull of death close, its cold shadow on her skin. Her pride told her to spit on the vial, to throw it away, but her heart whispered that this human had faced death just to bring it to her. She did not drink it instead. With a sudden scream, she raised the vial high and smashed it against the floor. Blue fire spilled across the stone, burning bright. Before fading, her golden eyes locked on the human, testing him. If he was a liar, he would show anger. If he was a betrayer, his mask would break. But the human did not flinch. He only stood tall, watching her with silent sorrow. And then, very slowly, he whispered words that froze her blood, words that made her eyes widen in shock, words that changed everything she thought she knew about him. The alien queen sat frozen on her shattered throne, her golden eyes still locked on the human before her. The glowing blue liquid had spilled across the floor, fading into dark cracks like dying stars. Her chest rose and fell heavy, each breath sharp with pain, each beat of her heart filled with doubt. She had destroyed his gift to test him, and, instead of anger, he only whispered words that cut her deeper than any blade. "I never came as your enemy," he said, his voice steady though his body trembled with wounds. "I came because you once saved me when no one else would." The queen's claws dug into the throne, her mind fighting against memory. It was true. Long ago, during the War of Burning Skies, she had seen this very soldier, broken and trapped under the rubble of a battlefield. Her council had told her to leave him, to let him die. But something, in his eyes that day, had reminded her of herself. Defiant, stubborn, unyielding, she had ordered him saved not because she cared, but because she respected that fire. And now, here he was, standing before her while all her own people betrayed her. "You dare twist my past into a chain," she hissed, though her voice shook. "You think one moment of mercy means I should bow to you now?" The human soldier did not step back. He did not lower his gaze. Instead, he took another slow step closer to the throne. His armor groaned. Blood trickled from his side, but his eyes never lost focus. "I never asked you to bow," he said softly. "I only ask you to live, because your death will mean the death of millions." Her pride screamed, but her mind could not ignore his words. She remembered the whispers of her council, their promises of peace while sharpening daggers behind her back. She remembered their faces when they poured poison into her goblet, smiling as she drank. Her own people wanted her gone. Her generals wanted her thrown. And yet this human, this so-called enemy, stood here ready to fight for her. The silence was heavy, broken only by the crackle of fire in the distance. Finally, her voice lowered, rough and bitter. "Why, human?" she asked, her eyes narrowing. "Why would you protect the one who enslaved your kind, who chained your people to her ships, who called you less than dust?" The soldier's jaw tightened, his eyes shadowed by memory. "Yes, your council made slaves of us. They whipped us, broke us, and spat on our lives," he said. "But you were different." Her chest tightened at the words, her claws loosening their grip on the stone. She wanted to deny it, to call it a lie, but deep inside she knew he spoke the truth. She had never admitted it aloud, but she had always despised the chains, the cruelty, the arrogance of her council. In secret, she had released some of his people. She had looked away when they escaped, not out of kindness, but because she believed chains made the empire weaker, and somehow this human had seen that truth. "You confuse mercy with weakness," she said quickly, trying to cover the storm inside her. "I gave you life once, nothing more. Then, let me return it now." The human replied, his voice like iron. "I have no crown, no throne, no army to betray me, but I still choose to stand for you." Her golden eyes widened slightly, for the first time unsure. This was no trick, no poison, no clever lie. It was a truth heavier than all her pride, a truth she could not face because to face it meant admitting she had trusted the wrong people all along. The queen leaned back on her throne, her body weak, her vision blurring. Her pride wanted to spit on him again, but her heart whispered a darker question. If her own council could betray her so easily, perhaps this human was the only one left who had not. "You speak of loyalty," she said at last, her voice low and sharp. "But loyalty is nothing without proof. Words are wind, human." The soldier nodded, his hand reaching into his armor. From inside he pulled a broken metal crest, an alien symbol burned black, the crest of the Queen's council. He threw it on the floor before her. "They betrayed you and they betrayed me," he said. "I was once their ally, a weapon they used until I saw their plans to poison your empire from the inside." Her eyes narrowed, staring at the crest, her chest rising fast. The pieces began to fall into place. The sudden rise of her generals, the whispers of rebellion, the strange silence in her guard. The human had known of this long before, yet he came to her side instead of running. Her blood boiled, her claws cracked the stone arm of her throne. "I will rip their hearts out," she growled, her voice filled with fire. "They dare betray me and call themselves rulers." The human's lips curved in a faint smile, but his eyes held no joy. "They already march, Queen. Their assassins failed, but their army does not stop. They come to finish what they started." Her golden eyes burned bright, her body shivering with rage and pain. She rose from the throne, weak but standing, her blood dripping onto the broken stone. She looked down at the human, her pride still heavy, her trust still uncertain. "Then you will prove your loyalty not with words," she said, her voice sharp. But with blood, the soldier bowed his head slightly, not as a slave, not as a servant, but as a warrior who understood the cost. "As you command," he answered. He turned toward the broken doors, his hand on his blade, his steps, slow but firm. The Queen watched him go, her heart torn between hate and something more dangerous. A strange fear rose inside her, not of death, not of betrayal, but of trusting him. For if she trusted him and he fell, her empire might still die. And if she did not trust him, she knew, for certain it would. The sound of drums thundered outside. Enemy warships landing, traitor armies gathering. The Queen's claws trembled on the throne, her breath quick and sharp. For the first time in her reign, she did not know if she would live to see the next dawn. But she knew one thing with burning certainty: the human would fight, and the blood he spilled tonight would decide if her throne would rise again or be lost forever. The broken palace walls shook as distant drums pounded through the night air. The Queen sat stiff on her throne, her claws digging into the armrests, her body weak, but her spirit burning. Her golden eyes followed the human soldier as he walked, back toward her, the shadows of firelight dancing on his face. He carried no fear, only a strange calm, as if he had already accepted death. The Queen hated that calm. It reminded her of betrayal, of how her council had smiled calmly while slipping poison into her goblet. She could still taste the bitter fire on her tongue, the venom crawling through her veins. Her pride had kept her standing, but the poison had torn her strength apart, leaving her body fragile and bleeding. Now this human stood before her again, empty hands raised to show no threat, but his words earlier still echoed in her mind. "You once saved me," he had said, and worse, he had spoken of loyalty when all her generals had abandoned her. It was unbearable, it was dangerous, it was tempting. The soldier reached into his belt once more and pulled another vial, smaller than the last, glowing faint green. The Queen's eyes narrowed, her body tense like a beast ready to strike. "Another trick," she spat, her voice filled with suspicion. "First blue, now green. Do you think I will drink poison from your hands?" The human shook his head slowly, his voice steady. "This is not poison," he said. "This is the same venom your council poured into your blood, but purified, reversed." He held it out, the faint green glow casting light on his scarred face. "If you drink, it will burn you, but it will also burn the poison away." The Queen's heart hammered in her chest, her pride screaming against his words. Why would he have such a thing? How could a human carry the cure to the venom of her own people? Her golden eyes narrowed further, searching his face for any hint of deception. Her mind whispered, "This could be salvation, or this could be death." "You speak like one of them," she hissed, her claws scraping the stone. "You know their secrets, their poisons, their plans. How?" The human lowered the vial, his jaw tightening. "Because once, I was theirs," he admitted, his voice heavy. "They used me, trained me, filled my body with machines and fire, made me their weapon, made me believe their lies. His gaze turned dark, shadows crossing his face. But when I saw their true plan, to poison you, to enslave both human and alien under their counsel, I broke free. The Queen's chest tightened, anger and disbelief fighting within her. "You expect me to believe this?" she roared, her voice echoing through the ruined chamber. "You, a human, claim you were a servant of my counsel, claim you know their venom, claim you can cure me, all with one small vial." The soldier stepped closer, his boots crunching on broken stone. He did not flinch under her fury. He simply placed the glowing vial on the step of her throne, just as he had done with the blue one before. "I expect nothing," he said quietly. "You can drink it, or you can let your empire die. The choice is yours, not mine." Her claws twitched, her golden eyes locked on the vial, the faint green glow pulling her like a flame in the dark. Her pride screamed to smash it again, to test him, to show she was not weak. But her body shook with every breath, her blood heavy with poison, her strength fading by the minute. And deep inside, a darker truth whispered. If she refused, her enemies would take her throne before dawn. The Queen snatched the vial in her hand, her claws trembling. She lifted it, her eyes burning into his, her voice sharp like a blade. "If this kills me, human," she said, "I will haunt you through every star. I will drag your soul into fire." The soldier bowed his head slightly. "Then I will burn with no regret," he answered. For the first time, her hands shook not from poison, but from something she could not name. Her pride was still heavy, her fury still alive. But beneath it all was a thread of fear. Fear that this human was telling the truth, fear that she needed him, fear that trusting him would change everything. With a sharp cry, she tore the vial open and poured the glowing liquid down her throat. Fire exploded in her veins, hotter than lightning, sharper than blades. Her scream shook the chamber, echoing. Through the ruins like thunder, her body arched, her claws slashing into the stone, her golden eyes blazing like suns. The soldier stood firm, watching her writhe and roar. His own blood dripped onto the floor, but his gaze never wavered. He knew the cure was not gentle. It was war inside the body, a battle between poison and life, and only the strongest could survive it. The Queen's scream turned to growls, then gasps, then silence. She collapsed forward, her hair falling across, her face, her claws shaking. The chamber was quiet again, save for her ragged breath. Her golden eyes slowly lifted, burning brighter than before, no longer clouded, no longer fading. The venom was gone, burned away by the cure. She rose slowly from the throne, her body still weak but no longer breaking, her eyes locked on the human, sharp and dangerous. "You risked my death," she whispered, her voice low and trembling with power. "You played with fire in my blood." The human finally let out a slow breath, his lips curving in the faintest shadow of a smile. "I knew you were strong enough," he said, her claws curled tight, her heart racing, her mind torn. For the first time in her reign, she felt something she could not control. Not rage, not pride, not hate, but doubt. Doubt in her counsel, doubt in herself, and worst of all, doubt in her hatred of him. She stepped closer, towering over him, her voice sharp as steel. "This does not mean I trust you," she said. "This means you live for now." The soldier met her gaze, unblinking. "Then let me earn more than life," he said quietly. Before she could answer, the palace shook, violently, dust falling from the cracked ceiling. The sound of heavy footsteps thundered closer, the traitor army entering her halls. The Queen's eyes widened, her claws flexing, her voice a low snarl. "They come to finish me," she hissed. "And now, human, we will see if your loyalty is truth, or another poison." The ruined palace trembled as the sound of armored footsteps drew near. The alien queen stood tall now, her body still weak, but her golden eyes burning brighter after the cure. Her claws flexed at her side, her sharp teeth glinting in the broken firelight. The human soldier stayed close, his blade drawn, his breath heavy but steady. He was bleeding, but his stance was unshaken. The Queen's ears caught a sound sharper then, Footsteps, a faint whisper of steel sliding against stone. Her eyes narrowed, her instincts screaming. She turned just in time to see a figure drop from the shadows above, moving swift as a serpent. A dagger gleamed in the assassin's hand, its blade dripping with poison brighter than fire. The weapon was aimed not at the human, but at her heart. The queen snarled, but her wounds slowed her. The assassin lunged, and in that instant the human moved. His blade clashed against the assassin's, sparks flying, the sound echoing through the broken hall. The human shoved the assassin back, the two circling each other like predators. The assassin was no ordinary warrior. This was one of her personal guards, trained in silence, trained to kill swiftly. The queen's rage boiled, her claws slamming against the throne. "You dare strike me in my own hall?" she roared, her voice shaking the walls. The assassin gave no answer, his hood hiding his face, only his cold eyes flashing with cruel purpose. Instead, he whispered one chilling phrase as he fought the human. "The council rules now." The human gritted his teeth, every strike of the assassin faster, sharper, deadlier than before. Their blades clashed again and again, steel biting steel, the sound like thunder in the empty chamber. The assassin moved with the precision of a shadow. His every strike aimed to kill. The human blocked, parried, struck back, his blood spilling with every movement. Still, he did not step back, his body shielding the queen from the dagger's path. The queen's eyes burned with fury and confusion. This was one of her own, a guard who had once sworn to die for her. Now his blade aimed for her life without hesitation. Her heart twisted with betrayal, deeper than any wound. The assassin lunged again, forcing the human to stumble, his shoulder cut deep, blood spraying across the stone. The queen rose from her throne, her claws sparking with lightning, her roar filled the chamber. "You were born in my house, trained by my hand, and now you turn against me?" The assassin only hissed back, his dagger flashing. "The council rules now, and your throne is finished." The human growled through clenched teeth, forcing the assassin back with a fierce strike. "Then let us see if your counsel saves you when you fall," he spat. The assassin moved like a shadow again, blades crossing in a blur. The fight was brutal, the sound of steel and growls mixing with the queen's heavy breathing. Her pride ached to join, to tear the assassin apart with her claws, but her wounds slowed her still. Human soldier fought on, each strike costing him more blood, more pain. His body moved on sheer will, his eyes burning with unyielding fire. The assassin slashed across his chest, but the human pushed forward anyway, driving his blade into the assassin's shoulder. The assassin screamed, twisting away, his dagger falling for just a moment. That moment was enough. The human seized the assassin by the arm and slammed him onto the broken stone floor. The assassin writhed, but the soldier pressed his blade against his throat, his voice like iron. "Why betray her?" he demanded, his chest heaving. "Why poison your own bloodline?" The assassin's cold eyes glared back. No fear, no shame. "Because power is all that matters," he whispered. "Your queen is weak. Her pride makes her blind. The council will lead, not her." The queen's fury exploded, her claws crackling with lightning. She stormed forward, her shadow falling over the assassin, her voice shaking the air. "Then die knowing you failed," she snarled. Her claws tore through the assassin's chest, lightning flashing, his scream echoing before his body fell limp. The chamber fell, silent again, the only sound the human's ragged breath. He staggered, falling to one knee, his blade clattering to the floor, blood soaking through his armor. The queen turned to him, her chest still rising with fury, but her golden eyes now, softer, troubled. "You shielded me," she said slowly, her voice uncertain. "Even when my own guard turned against me." The human forced himself to his feet, though his body shook with weakness. "I told you," he said, his voice low but steady. "Words mean nothing. Only proof, and my proof is my blood on your floor." Her golden eyes widened slightly, her claws trembling at her side. No warrior, no general, no council member had ever spoken such words to her. No one had ever dared bleed for her throne while she doubted their worth. And yet here stood a human, an enemy, giving proof more powerful than any vow. Before she could speak, the sound of drums grew louder, shaking the broken palace walls. The traitor army was close, their shadows falling across the ruined gates. The queen's gaze turned sharp again, her claws curling, her pride returning like fire. But deep inside, a voice whispered, without this human, she might already be dead. She hated the thought, but she could not deny it. She looked at him once more, his body trembling, his face pale, his eyes still, holding that defiant fire. You bleed for me, she said, her voice low. Then bleed with me until the last enemy falls. The human raised his blade again, though his body barely held. His voice came steady, strong, unbroken. Until the last enemy falls, he repeated. The queen's eyes blazed as the great palace gates shook under the fists of the traitor army. The shadows of hundreds filled the broken hall outside, torches burning, blades ready. The queen and the human stood side by side, broken yet unyielding. The battle for her throne was about to begin. The great palace gates shook like thunder. The traitor army had come, their footsteps pounding the earth, their war cries rising in the night air. Torches burned in their hands, casting long shadows across the broken walls. The banners of the council fluttered above them, black and silver, mocking the queen's once golden crest. Inside the ruined throne room, the alien queen stood tall, though her body still ached with wounds. Her golden eyes burned with fury, her claws sparking with lightning, her pride unbroken. Beside her stood the human soldier, his armor cracked, his body bleeding, but his blade steady. The two of them stood against hundreds, perhaps thousands, yet neither turned away. The queen's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. They dare to march on my hall, they dare to raise their banners above mine, they dare to think I am finished. Her growl echoed against the stone, shaking the air, but even as she spoke, doubt whispered in her chest. She had no army left within these walls. Her guards had betrayed her, her council had poisoned her. All she had now was herself, and the human. The human's voice came low but steady. They think you are broken, they think you are weak, he said. Let us prove them wrong. The queen snarled, her claws flexing, but her golden eyes flicked to him. She hated his calm, his strange faith, but it was the only anchor she had left. Still, her pride was heavy, her words sharp. You speak like one of my generals, human, but you are not my blood. Why do you fight for me? The soldier did not flinch, his gaze firm. Because I know what they want, he answered. They want to rule over humans and aliens alike, to choke both in chains, to make the stars bow to their greed. His blade lifted, gleaming faintly in the firelight. And because I would rather die beside the one who still fights than live under the ones who betray. Her chest tightened, her pride roaring against her heart. How could she, a queen, stand side by side with a human? And yet, every word of his burned with truth. The council's greed was endless, their betrayal deeper than any wound. Perhaps this soldier was the only one left who truly understood. The gates cracked, stone splintering, the roar of the army outside rising. The queen bared her fangs, her voice a thunderous roar. Let them come, they will learn their queen still has claws. The human glanced at her, his face pale but his eyes unbroken. There is still one chance, he said quietly. I did not come here alone. Her golden eyes snapped toward him, sharp and suspicious. What do you mean? She demanded. The soldier's lips curved in a faint, tired smile. I came with shadows, warriors who owe me their lives hidden beyond these walls. He nodded toward the darkness outside, his voice steady. Waiting only for your command. The queen's breath caught, her claws tightening on the stone. She had expected betrayal at every turn, but this revelation struck her deeper. The human had an army, small or large, she did not know, but an army that would answer not to the council, not to treachery, but to her if she chose. Her pride whispered that it was a trap, a trick, but her heart whispered something more dangerous, something she hated to feel. Hope. The gates burst open, splinters flying, and the traitor army poured into the hall like a flood. Their blades gleamed, their faces twisted with triumph. The queen raised her claws, lightning cracking in her palms. The human raised his blade, his body trembling but his stance unbroken, and the traitors roared, charging forward, believing victory was already theirs. The Queen's voice cut through, the chaos fierce and commanding. "If you have shadows, human, let them strike now." The soldier lifted his arm, his voice booming like thunder. "To me," he cried. From the darkness beyond the ruined palace, shapes moved, dozens, then hundreds, cloaked in black armor, their eyes glowing faintly in the firelight. Silent warriors, humans and aliens alike, bound not by counsel or crown but by loyalty to the soldier who led them. They surged forward, striking the traitor army from behind, their blades flashing, their war cries breaking the night. The Queen's golden eyes widened, her chest burning. With shock, this was no small band. This was a hidden force strong enough to shake the balance. The traitors turned in confusion, their charge broken by the sudden ambush. The hall erupted into battle, steel clashing, screams echoing, blood painting the stone. The Queen leapt into the fray, her claws tearing through armor, lightning flashing from her hands. Her fury was a storm, her pride a blade, her roar shaking the air. The human fought beside her, every strike of his sword fueled not by strength but by will. He moved through the chaos like fire through dry grass, cutting down traitors who dared approach her. The battle raged, fire and blood mixing in the ruined hall. The Queen tore down one of her own generals, his blade still dripping with betrayal. The human struck aside another, his chest heaving with pain, his blood spilling. Together they fought, their bodies breaking but their spirits unyielding. The Queen's mind swirled with fury and confusion. Why did this human bring such a force for her? Why did he bleed and fight for a throne not his? Her pride told her to cast him aside, but her heart whispered that without him, she would already be ashes. As the traitors fell one by one, the hall filled with screams and thunder. Yet still more enemies surged through the gates, their banners dark, their faces twisted with hunger for power. The Queen's claws sparked, her golden eyes blazing, but her body faltered, her strength still not fully returned. The human saw her stumble, his blade rising to shield her once again. The battle was not yet won. The army was endless, the shadows still outnumbered, the palace walls trembling under the weight of war. And in the heart of the chaos, the Queen's pride finally bent to a truth she had long refused. She could not hold her throne alone, not against this march, not against this tide. Her golden eyes flicked to the human, his body broken but unyielding, his sword dripping with blood. And for the first time she whispered words she never thought would leave her lips. "Fight with me, human, not beneath me but beside me." The soldier's eyes met hers, fire burning in his gaze, and he answered with only two words, "Until death." The traitor army roared again, crashing forward like a wave. The Queen and the human braced together, their shadows merging in the firelight. The march of the enemy thundered on, endless, merciless, and the throne itself trembled as if it knew the battle had only just begun. The throne room had become a battlefield of fire and steel. The traitor army poured through the broken gates like an endless flood, their banners dark, their blades hungry for blood. The Queen's hidden allies clashed with them, shadows striking from every corner. Humans and aliens alike fighting as one. Screams and roars echoed through the hall, the air thick with smoke, sparks, and the iron scent of death. At the center of the storm stood the alien Queen, her golden eyes blazing like twin suns, her claws tearing through armor, her voice roaring commands like thunder. Beside her fought the human soldier, his blade a silver streak in the chaos, his body bleeding but his will unbroken. Every strike he made was fierce. Every step he took shielded her from blades that sought her life. He fought not as a servant, not as a slave, but as a warrior bound by something stronger than pride. The Queen struck down a traitor captain, lightning bursting from her claws, but her body faltered, the poisoned scars still deep in her veins. Her strength not yet fully returned, she stumbled, and in that moment a traitor soldier raised his blade high, aiming for her throat. Before the strike could fall, the human threw himself between them, his sword catching the blow, sparks flying. The enemy's blade bit into his shoulder, blood spraying across the broken floor, but still he stood, forcing the soldier back. The Queen's eyes widened, her heart twisting in a way she did not understand. "You bleed again for me," she hissed, her voice trembling with fury and something darker. The human gritted his teeth, shoving the enemy aside, his voice rough but steady. "I bleed because you must live," he said. "If you fall, all falls with you." Her claws tightened, her chest burning. No general of hers had ever spoken such words. No ally of hers had ever spilled blood so freely. It shook her pride, it shook her heart, and yet it made her stand taller, her voice rising louder. "Then, I will not fall," she roared, lightning crackling from her hands as she tore through another wave of enemies. The battle raged on, fire spreading across the chamber, shadows dancing on broken walls. The hidden army fought fiercely, but the traitors were many, their numbers pressing like a tide. The queen and the human carved a path through them, their movements fierce, their strikes deadly. Everywhere they went, enemies fell, but so too did her own hidden warriors, their bodies scattering across the stone. The human's body weakened with every moment, blood pouring from his wounds, his steps heavier, his breath ragged. Still he did not slow, still he kept his blade raised. The queen saw him falter but refuse to fall, and her rage grew sharper. She struck harder, faster, her fury fed by the sight of him bleeding for her again and again. The enemy pushed harder, their generals stepping into the fray, their blades shining with cruel intent. One general, taller than the rest, clad in black steel, raised a massive axe, his voice booming. "Your reign is over, queen, your throne will burn tonight." He charged forward, his axe swinging down with crushing force. The queen braced, but her strength was still not enough to stop the blow. The human leapt in front of her again, his sword meeting the axe. The impact shook the floor, the steel shrieking. The human roared with effort, his body trembling as the massive blade pressed down on him. The queen's claws sparked, but before she could strike, the human shoved the axe aside, taking the full blow across his chest. Blood burst from the wound, his armor shattering, his body collapsing onto one knee. The queen screamed, her roar shaking the palace, lightning exploding from her claws. She struck the traitor general with a storm of fury, her claws tearing through steel and flesh, her lightning burning him to ash. The hall shook with the power of her rage, the enemies stumbling in fear, but her golden eyes turned back, and she saw the human fall to the floor, his sword slipping from his hand. Her heart froze, her breath sharp. She rushed to his side, her claws trembling as she touched his blood-soaked armor. For the first time in her life, her pride cracked, her voice breaking. You fool, why do you keep standing in front of me?" she hissed, her eyes burning. "Do you not value your own life?" The human's eyes flickered open, dim but still burning with that strange fire. His lips curved into the faintest smile, his voice weak but steady. "My life is nothing if it means you rise again." The queen's chest tightened, a strange ache tearing through her heart. Her claws pressed gently against his wound, sparks of her power flowing, desperate to keep him alive. "You were never worthy to touch me, human," she whispered, her voice shaking. "And yet you are, the only one who has." The battle roared on around them, traitor soldiers surging forward, their cries filling the air. The hidden army still fought, but the tide was heavy, the throne itself trembling under the storm. The queen rose slowly, her claws blazing with fire and lightning, her golden eyes burning with fury and grief. She turned to face the endless army, her body shaking, her voice a thunderous snarl. "You will not take my throne," she roared. "Not while I still stand, not while he still breathes." The enemies hesitated, the sight of her fury holding them still for a moment. But their numbers pressed on, blades raised, shadows flooding the hall. The queen stood over the fallen human, lightning sparking in her claws, her voice sharp as steel. "If blood must be spilled tonight, let it drown this hall in fire," and, with a scream that shook the skies, she unleashed her power, fire and lightning exploding through the throne room. The walls shook, the banners burned, enemies fell screaming, but even as her storm raged, the tide was not broken yet. The traitors pushed still, endless, merciless, their march unyielding. And the queen knew with a heavy heart, the battle was not only for her throne now, it was for the life of the human bleeding at her feet. The throne room burned with fire and lightning. The banners of the council lay in ashes, the stone floor cracked. The air filled with screams and smoke. The alien queen stood in the center of the storm, her golden eyes blazing, her claws glowing, with sparks of fury around her. The hidden army fought against the endless tide of traitors, blades clashing, shadows falling, but her gaze never left the figure at her feet. The human soldier lay broken on the stone, his armor shattered, his blood painting the cracks. His chest rose and fell slowly, every breath shallow, every heartbeat weaker. Still his eyes burned faintly with that strange fire, refusing to die, refusing to leave her throne unguarded. The queen's claws trembled as she touched his wound, her power flowing into him, sparks flickering weakly. Her pride screamed to focus on the battle, but her heart whispered only one truth: he mattered more than any crown. "Fool," she hissed under her breath, her voice breaking. "You gave me your blood, your strength, your life, and still you smile." The human's lips curved faintly, his whisper barely rising above the roar of battle. "I smile because you still stand." Her claws curled tight, her golden eyes burning with a storm of rage and grief. For the first time in her reign, tears touched her vision, hot and unwanted. No betrayal of counsel, no wound of blade had cut her so deep as the sight of this human bleeding for her throne. He had been called unworthy, a slave, an enemy, and yet he was the only one who had never betrayed, never turned away, never left her to die. The enemies surged again, their generals roaring commands, their army pressing hard. The queen rose too, her full height, her wings spreading, her claws crackling with fire. She stood over the human like a shield of storm, her voice thundering through the hall. "You think me weak, you think me fallen, but you have not killed me yet." Her roar shook the air, lightning tearing through the ranks of traitors, fire, burning their banners to ash. The hidden army rallied at her cry, striking harder, their blades singing through the chaos. But the tide was still heavy, more traitors pouring in, their shadows endless. The queen fought like a storm, every strike fueled by fury and pain, every roar shaking the stone. Yet her golden eyes flicked back again and again to the human. Her pride and her throne mattered, but his breath mattered more. The human stirred, his hand weakly reaching for his fallen sword. The queen knelt beside him, pressing the blade into his hand, her voice low but fierce. "You are not my servant," she whispered. "You are my equal, and tonight you fight beside me." His eyes widened faintly, his breath catching. Those words, equal, not slave, not lesser, were heavier than any crown. His fingers closed around the blade, his whisper trembling but strong. "Then I will rise with you until the last star fades." Together they stood, the queen towering in her storm, the human bleeding but unyielding. Side by side they charged into the wave of traitors, their blades and claws striking as one. She tore through armor with lightning, he cut through shadows with steel. Their movements matched, their fury one, their voices thundering together. "Fall," they roared, and the hall shook with their wrath. The traitors faltered, fear spreading at the sight. The queen and the human, once enemies, now stood united, their bond fiercer than any chain. Every strike they made broke the tide. Every roar they gave sent shadows fleeing. The hidden army surged with renewed strength, their spirits lit by the sight of their queen and the human fighting as one. The traitor generals saw the battle slipping, their faces twisted with rage. One by one they fell to the storm, their banners burned, their voices silenced. The last of them, crawling in blood, spat toward the throne. "You are nothing without us, queen, nothing without your counsel." The queen's golden eyes narrowed, her claws glowing with fire. "No," she said coldly, her voice a blade. "I am more without you because now I stand with one who never betrayed." Her claws struck, ending the traitor. The hall grew quiet. The enemy's march broken at last, bodies lay across the stone. The fire dimming, the banners turned to ash. The hidden army stood breathing heavy, their blades dripping with blood but victory burning in their eyes. The throne had survived, the queen had survived, but at a cost written in blood. The queen turned back to the human who now fell to his knees, his strength gone. She caught him before he collapsed fully, her claws trembling as she held him close. Her pride cracked once more, her voice soft, raw. You were always worthy, she whispered. More worthy than my counsel, more worthy than my throne, more worthy than me. His eyes flickered, his lips curving into one last faint smile. Then I die, content, he whispered, his body going still in her arms. The queen's roar shook the heavens, louder than any storm, her fury and grief burning through the ruins. Her hidden army knelt in silence, the air heavy with the weight of the moment. She placed the human gently on the throne itself, her golden eyes blazing with fire and sorrow. He bled for this seat more than any council, more than any general, more than any bloodline, she declared. From this day forward, this throne is his as much as mine. The hall trembled with her words, the shadows silent, the fire burning brighter. And as she rose, her golden eyes turned to the stars beyond the broken walls. She was no longer only a queen of pride, but a queen of change. Her empire had been saved, her throne restored, but her heart had been scarred forever, for the human who was once called unworthy had become the only one truly worthy at last.